To the Moon and Back, I guess, one of our favourite songs, only because it was written very early on in the piece. It was on our first demo, and probably the reason why we got a record deal. It was initially a piece of music that Daniel showed to me, and it was pretty complete. I think that my job was really simple. I took it away, and the next day I had the melody and the lyric and just sang it, and we both had goosebumps.
This was the song that I had to sort of fight for to get onto the demo tape because I believed in it so much. It went to number 1 3 years ago. I said this is going to go to number 1, so it actually did. Throughout the whole of Australia, we went to number 1.
One thing we didn't say about To the Moon and Back was the fact that it was incredibly hard to record because the demo was so perfect. It was a really simple song, and it had out-of-key singing on the demo, it had cheap keyboard sounds, but it was so believable, and that's the reason why everyone hooked on that song. And recording To the Moon and Back, we really tried to jazz it up and change it and make it this and make it that, and we almost lost it. I think we only just got To the Moon and Back. I'd have to say that I definitely was a pop fan, because I grew up, I was born in 1972, and I watched the whole pop thing happen. I think that the album that changed my life wasn't the Beatles, it was Prince's Purple Rain. Duran Duran, Pretty in Pink was one of my favourite teen films. So yeah, I was living and breathing the whole fluoro experience, I guess.
Pop, definitely not all the time for me. I went through a phase of ska and punk and oi music for a while there when I was a teenager. But what that did is open up a lot of various types of influences throughout my music, and I think it's done, not a bad job. Carry On Dancing, very grand, very avant-garde, very over the top. Expels a lot of Darren's inner personality. I love the combination of strings and pianos. In the recording process, we managed to get some timpani samples and some castanets and whatnot, so we just tried to make this bigger than life.
I think Carry On Dancing is probably my favourite track on the record. It just jumps out at you, and I remember hearing the finished mix, and it was bigger than I hoped it could get. It was just it just feels so grandiose. I think that's a good word for it. When I hear it, I see things like a masquerade ball in the 18th century and a werewolf or a vampire perhaps outside stalking the people inside. It's a very moody track, and it's one that I love to sing live. I think Carry On Dancing sums up my personality in the way that it is theatrical, it is grandiose. It's got the big breakdown section in the middle with the claps and the castanets, and I guess it sums up my interest in vampires and that kind of thing.
I'm probably a lot more introverted than Darren. I sit on things perhaps a little longer. I take things away. I'm a Cancer, which is a star sign. And I'll go in, walk sideways into it, grab it, walk sideways out of it, and then get back and think about what I've just done. There is a difference. It's very, very hard to put it into words from my point of view, but
I think the difference is that I'm impulsive and you're not, but being impulsive is very dangerous anyway. So
yeah, I digest things perhaps a little longer than Darren would.
Tears of Pearls. It's funny, I love the track listing of the Australian album. It's actually different to the rest of the world. To me, it starts off with The Moon and Back, and we hear the strings, and Carry On Dancing comes in at full force, and Pearls carries it along. It's again, we hear the string section. It was a very different song. I mean, once again, this was a piece of music that Daniel showed to me. We were driving in his car once, and we were never really that keen on it, and it changed a lot during the recording process. And Charles Fisher did a wonderful job of producing just the little things in that track, like there's a string line which is in unison with my melody. There's glockenspiel in the chorus, and it was all very Diana Ross and the Supremes Motown kind of production values, which we'd talked a little bit about, and it's nice. It's got a real Eastern feel to it now, in the guitar solos, and I think it's quite exciting. And once again, live, it really There's a lot of adrenaline there. I like it.
It is a good live song. I don't actually recall writing it. For some strange reason, I can't remember writing this song. And it sort of popped up in the recording process and was a few people's favourites within our companies and Charles and the people that we were dealing with. And I just didn't know where it come out of nowhere. But I did like the change that it took in the recording session with the Eastern feel, the guitar riffs and the intros. It was a sort of a technical thing, and one of the bottom E string was actually tuned to a D, I think accidentally, and it was actually sounded like a little sitar-like, and it worked.
I think I didn't choose it. Neither of us chose this career, but for different reasons. I think Daniel didn't choose to be a musician because it was almost like a family tradition. I didn't choose it because from as young as I can remember, every time I saw anyone on television or went to a concert, I was secretly substituting myself there. I've always been a voyeur. I've always stood outside a concert or a performance and thought, I wish that was me, or if that was me, what would I do? So I can't answer that question. I think the whole reason I'm doing this is the answer to that question. I think once I get to a point which is, I don't know, worldwide success or something, it will actually teach me something. I think I have to learn something about this career, and I'm not sure what that is.
I think I actually got into making music before that I actually got into listening to music, and I still don't listen to a hell of a lot of music these days. It's a bizarre thing. I think from a lot of covers bands in previous days, learning 1,000 songs kind of burnt you out very quickly on what we had a chance to listen to. So I've still yet to experiment with music that I really, really love. I Want You. This took 3-4 different avenues in the writing process. It's actually given us the opportunity to write 2 or 3 other songs out of it. Great one for live, since how it was a good single. The people love it. It's a really good song.
I think I Want You is really special. I think that it has such a unique sound, and once again, I sometimes don't even feel responsible for it because I listen to the CD in context and it always seems to jump out at you. I think it was a really obvious choice for a first single. I think it's got a hell of a lot of personality, and I'm really proud of just the production value in there. I love the blend of the vocals. There's about 12 vocals in the chorus, all double tracked and harmonised, and the vocal in the verse is so fast and so intricate, and it always seems to fascinate people, and I like it. It just seemed to happen. I remember coming back the next day in the little room out the front and sort of singing it. It was really quickly written, to be honest. I mean, I think I sang this song 2 days before we flew to Sydney to record the record, and we had it on a TDK tape.
Right. Really bad.
Just on a TDK tape, and it was the least produced or finished demo that we had for this record, and was in fact almost shelved. We tentatively put it up for selection, and it was politely looked at but sort of sat by the wayside. But by the time we'd recorded about 8 tracks, I guess we just slipped it in, and somehow it was assumed that we'd record this one, and it seemed to turn out really well. Absolutely. It was probably one of those turning points in your life. I think you meet a few special people in your life. One of them would be your soulmate, and one would be a special person that you would connect with, and I think Daniel is probably one of those people. I saw an ad in a music trader for a band that needed a singer, and I called Daniel up, and there was about 5 or 6 ads I could have chosen, and I chose his ad. It was the first audition I ever went to. When I spoke to him on the phone, I clicked, and even after the audition, I remember leaving his house and I went to a restaurant with a friend of mine, and I actually said to her, I think that I'm going to be really successful. Like, I can feel it in my bones just from meeting this person.
I definitely remember the phone call. That was the first time I've ever heard someone speak so humble, yet he had a little power in his voice that I just picked up on and loved. And actually, to the point where he came around and I met with him, it wasn't a definite, oh, of course. It was, there's something happening here. There's something happening. And once he sang and I realised he had, a superb voice, the relationship sort of tended to grow from there.
Truly Madly Deeply is one of our favourite songs. It's strange, this one, because before we recorded the record it was a very different song. It was faster, it had a completely different chorus. And during the process of recording the record, I guess we changed a lot. We'd been relocated to Sydney. We were there for 8 months. It was the first time either of us had really left our families. We were living in a 1-bedroom apartment on each other's case every day. It was quite a stressful situation, and it was the last song that we recorded for the record. And I think we talk about this now, even though it's a love song and it's based on a very personal experience, it's still a song about being homesick for us, actually, just about the people that you love. And we rewrote it, and suddenly the tempo came down, the chorus lyric changed, and it was a real surprise. It was intended to be a very quiet, down-key finish to the record, and that's how we tried to produce it. And during the recording process, it just showed itself as a much stronger track, and when we looked at the finished record, we realised it was probably one of the strongest tracks on there.
There was a day when Charles and I were just hanging around, not really doing much in the studio, and we had this song, Magical Kisses it was called, and we wanted to play around with it a little bit, and we found a loop from some CD there, and it was like really slow, and we were trying to put it to this track, and it just wasn't working. So we said, well, why don't we slow the whole song down so it fits this loop? And that was the way it sort of ended up getting, half the speed that it started out with. And it was a bonus. It just came out of nowhere, a definite bonus.
I remember I wrote the chorus in, I think it's called the Bayswater Brasserie on Bayswater Road in Sydney, over a cappuccino, and we actually had a keyboard and everything set up in the hotel, and I went back and we sort of sang the song, and it just seemed right. And suddenly this song was a much more credible, believable song than the Magical Kisses had ever been.
Yeah.
And it was because it was from the heart. I don't think there was ever a stage when we decided that it was starting. And that's why I think that there'll never be a stage when we realise that it's over. I think it will just happen. It's like we decided to invest a night to write a song together and see how it went. And that song was 1,000 words, and it's a song that's on this record. And we were so confident after that we just decided to come back to each other's house every day. And really, that's all this band has been. It's just a decision for both of us to keep coming back every day and keep doing it. But now we have a record deal. Now we have an album out.
Now we have to do it.
But it was always just, wow, that was promising. Let's keep doing it. And then before we knew it, we were a band, and we were, we had a record deal, and we had songs on the radio.
In some way, I enjoy going for my goals and actually getting my goals. I think the struggle of achieving something is a hell of a lot more rewarding while you're doing it, because it happens gradually, rather than just, winning the lotto wouldn't be a struggle, would it? And it would happen fairly easy, where working up to earn, if money is your success, $1 million, then I guess that's probably more enjoyable, and it will take a lot longer, and you would look back on the whole thing and go, yep, I enjoyed this, I'm well deserved of it. Great idea from Charles of the bass line came out in the studio. Just started distorting it, made it really fuzzy, funky, blues. This song's got everything.
Violet, it seems like every song we're talking about changed during the recording process, but this song, I guess one of the only things that changed was the bass line. It moves and jumps now, and it's fat and fuzzy and very funky, and as soon as that happened, the whole song just came alive. And then we were lucky enough to have Rex Go come in and play some fantastic guitar on the track. It's probably one of my favourite tracks as well. I can't decide whether it's really commercial or whether it's just really cool, but I really like it, and it reminds me of the energy that you hear in a Prince track or Need You Tonight by In Excess. There's just something about it that it has a sonic quality that just, it bubbles and pops along. I really enjoy listening to it.
It was actually a really hard song to record because it was our first one. Darren and I had just flown down to Sydney, just met with this producer called Charles Fisher, walked into the studio and all looked at each other and said, where do we start? And one of us said, Violet. And about a month later, we actually got something happening on Violet. That's how long it took before we actually got something moving in the studio.
We actually shelved it halfway through and thought, oh, hang on, and spent copious amounts of time working on the rhythm loop and the bass line, just trying to make it work. And in the end, the solution was really simple.
It's definitely not part of my makeup, I don't think. I'd like to speak to an audience through a guitar or through a keyboard rather than my personality. It's not to say I can't do it because I've learnt to do it and I'm having to do it. I enjoy some days of it and I hate other days of it. You've got to be ready for it, basically.
I love being a public person because I think I'm a person who feels the need to express himself all the time, whether or not people want to hear it or not. But I know one thing, doing this job has made me realise a lot of things about myself that I didn't know, because you hear everything you said come back at you. You see your words printed, and for the first time in your life you see yourself from an objective point of view, and that can be a very humbling experience, and it's certainly changing my personality, for good or bad. It's changing me.
A good way or a bad way?
I think in a good way. I think it's making me stop doing things that I've always done and never thought about. It's making me think a little bit more about what I say, about the fact that I'm a person who always, I'm a very one-sided person and see everything from my point of view, and it's making me realise that there's a zillion personalities and there are a zillion opinions in the world, and that's what I meant about humbling me a little bit. All around me, quirky, freaky, bizarre, fun. Initially, it was my attempt lyrically to include an aspect of Daniel's life in our music, because I felt a bit selfish that I'd taken over certain themes and whatever, and Daniel has an obsession with Meg Ryan, but it's a healthy one. He loves Meg Ryan very much, and in our little home studio there's about 14 or 15 pictures of Meg, some of them wall mounted, one of them from me as a gift to Daniel. And there's a scene in a Meg Ryan film called When a Man Loves a Woman, and she's dancing, and she dances in a certain way, and she says the words "stick on tattoo," and the way she says those words is the personality of this song. We wrote a song for Meg Ryan to dance to, and it's all about being obsessed with Meg Ryan.
And I thank you for that.
Although you'd never know it now.
It's a very bitty song. The song's in bits and pieces, and it's a little funky and a little disco, and there's hippie elements to the song as well. It's like computerized hippies.
It's pretty camp too. It's pretty crazy, and we were really unsure about whether to put it on the record or not, and it was only decided at the very last minute to put it on, only because I think it's one of the only tracks where we really let our hair down. I'm really proud of the rap in the middle. It's quirky,
fantastic lyrics.
But it's lyrically, I'm really proud of it, and everyone who listens to the record says, who did the rap? And I'm like, well, me. Well, yeah, it's just a quirky little song. It's not meant to be taken seriously. It's like being an actor. It's like performing. It's doing to your voice what a costume can do to your voice in a stage play. To be honest, really the only affected part of this song is the rap, and it's actually the speed of the vocal, and it was a mistake. I was stuffing around with the vari-speed dial on the multi-track recorder, and I realised that you could change the pitch of your voice. So I pitched it up a notch, basically. Like, it's pretty close to the normal pitch of my voice, so there's a hell of a lot of play acting happening in that rap. And when it came back, it sounded like chipmunks on steroids, and I really liked it, so we kept it.
Universe. It actually started out It sounded like Eric Clapton had met Joe Satriani in a pub and said, let's go home now and write a song. When it first started, it was a guitar-based groove with some sort of like a lush sort of keyboards creeping in here and there. And then I gave it to Darren and he did this.
Well, I heard it in a different way. I thought, once again, like Moon and Back, I thought it was one of the strongest pieces of music that Daniel had written at that stage. He's since eclipsed himself. But at that stage it really was. And I just had some ideas for a feel, and the bass line subsequently changed. It became more Smokey Robinson, I guess. To be honest, we'd been listening to That's the Way Love Goes by Janet Jackson, and I thought it was a fantastic, sexy, slow groove, and I really wanted to sing a sexy, slow song, and that was Universe. Then mixing the track was another story. It was finished and recorded and mixed by Chris Lord-Alge, and we really liked it. We were really happy with it. And when we went to America, the Americans had an idea for it, and they really wanted to see if they could change it, and it was given to Mike Peeler, who's done a lot of work with Sade, Fine Young Cannibals, and when he came back with the finished track, it sounded like a Smokey Robinson song, and it was really, really ironic that it would go that way. Really sweet. I think it's almost a perfect pop song. It's funny, not as much as we believed a producer would do. I think we went into this record waiting for people to just turn it into a great record. We had the songs, tell me where to sing, tell Daniel what to play, we'll do it. It was a slow process, and what it did, it taught us to take responsibility. More than anything, I think Charles taught us to make it our record. Without taking anything away from Charles, he made us sit down and make decisions and be responsible for what was on tape. Taught me a lot about the physical nature of recording, about using equipment, introduced us to the sampler. Suggests little sections in songs which you don't think are that important, but in the end actually really top off the song. Especially in a song, there's a B-side called Promises, and there was an outro section, and he suggested me inserting that in the middle eight of the song, and I did. And to this day, it's a perfect arrangement now. Like, the song arrangement is perfect.
Charles's motto would be less is more, and it was a perfect motto to have for Darren and I, because we like to fill things up. We like, as much as we can put down, we'll put it down. And we needed someone like Charles to go, okay, think about this, guys. Why do you actually want to do this? You don't have to if you do this. And it was as simple as that. And we'd go, yeah, great idea. And it was a handful of them that helped make Charles produce this record the way he had. That's all it was. It was so simple.
It was simplifying things. Him saying, you don't need it to be that chaotic. Do this, do that. And then his real talent is that Charles babysits the record when you leave. He spent 2 weeks tweaking it. We came back into the mix and there were little glockenspiels and there were string sections in there and just tiny little pad bits that he had added at the end, which they were like the seasoning, on the meal. It just really touched it off really nicely. The first track Daniel and I wrote and finished together was 1,000 Words, and it was funny. I remember sitting in his front room and we said, we're going to do this, let's write some songs. He said, what do you want to do? And I said, I've been working on this song, and I pulled out the chords to Right on Time by that band, whatever that was. Dun, 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 dun. Really simple house song. And, and sang this different melody over the top, thinking I could fudge it, and Daniel said, well, we could go that way, but a zillion bands have. What do you actually want to do? And we started talking about music, and I was really into Achtung Baby by U2 at the time, and I don't know, Daniel was a big fan of NXS and Seal, I guess, but he pulled out a chord progression, which is the chord progression of the song, and I pulled out like a Manchester kind of beat to go over the top of it, and it filled the room. I remember thinking, wow, this is the most full, piece of music I've ever heard in my life. And when I look back now, Daniel probably thought it was really simple, but for me, it was the most musical thing I'd ever seen or heard. And lyrically, it was about a real conflict that I've had with a friend of mine, and it's someone I don't even speak to anymore. It's funny, I'd had an argument with the person, and the song basically is about me phoning the person up and just telling them all the things that I'd always wanted to say to them, and that's why it's called 1,000 Words, because it's about me realising that in the end, however sad it is to admit it, there's probably not a single word you could say to make me want to go through this hell and get back online again and have this a part of my life again. And it's funny because I since sort of reconciled with that person, and now I'm really not in that person's life anymore, but the song sums up the whole vibe of that relationship for me. And yeah.
1,000 Words. 1,000 Words is a song that was the Virgin song. It was the first song that happened. I still think you can see Darren and I learning about each other in listening to that song. That was sitting there sort of, it was like looking up at Darren and looking up at Daniel, and the songs can say different things to each of us. But I think it's great that it's on our first record because it means a lot in that way.
Yeah, we do admire each other because our jobs are completely different, and I can't do what Daniel does, and I'm not jealous of it. I just admire it, and vice versa.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, I know my job, Darren knows his, and it's working. So why the hell would you want to change it? You know, it's a good relationship. Really.
I think it is with fondness that we remember writing songs and recording songs, because it's never a struggle, it's never a battle. It's just, here, I've done this. And it's a little game almost. We try to top each other. Daniel will write a piece of music and it's like, oh my God, it threatens me because it's better than anything we've done. So I'll go, okay, and I'll have to go away.
It is. It's very much like that.
And I come up with something that's better than ever. And then, so I might come up with a song lyrically that just blows him out of the water and the melody's really quirky, and he'll go, well, have a go at this, and then he'll pull Carry On Dancing out of the hat and just show me that.
That's why I think a lot of people who know that story say that we can't write a B-side, because we're constantly struggling up against each other to make it a better song than what it was actually supposed to be. I mean, B-side, it's like, hey, let's just fill a song on a single here, but we just can't do it. It's like, no, I want to write a great song.
We have a lot of trouble writing a B-side, and someone once said to us, don't write B-sides, just write songs. And just, you know, some songs you'll spend more money on and others you won't. But for me, it's like, but everyone could be a potential hit. What do we do? What do we do? But, you know.
Break Me, Shake Me, again, was rewritten from a track called Stepping Stone, for anybody who can get their hands on our first demo tape. That should be a few out there somewhere.
I would strongly advise it, but...
Yeah. This is a guitar rock song. This is about putting a guitar over your shoulder and being a hero for me. Live, it's a great performing song. The light and shade in this song is incredible. It's just either in your face or it's whispering at you. I think it's a really strong track.
Break Me, Shake Me, once again, to me, I see this song, 1,000 Words, and mine as like a little trilogy. Or it's a theme in the record, and to me they're all really moody, and we play them very close together live. Break Me, Shake Me, once again, is about conflict with a friendship, but it's someone that I love dearly, but it was about a very real tension and very real conflict that I had with the person, and it was a song called Stepping Stone, and we reconciled after that song, and we became friends, and everything was fine. But the same sorts of things started to happen to our relationship, and subsequently the song had to be rewritten because the first song didn't describe the situation anymore. This is part 2 to that song. And yeah, it's schizophrenic. It really is quite crazy. I remember we started recording Stepping Stone, and it just didn't feel right, and I started singing a different melody. I started singing the words, I never thought I'd change my opinion again, and Daniel said, that's a great melody, and then we ended up rewriting the song. Love it. It's probably close to my favourite song on the record, probably just underneath Carry On Dancing, and live it's my favourite song to do. It's just great. These songs were born out of a union which really started on stage. We met in live bands, and then we retreated to a studio. And even though I love songwriting, recording is not the most pleasant experience. It really isn't. Writing songs is great. Recording songs is tedious, and it can be scary because you're always verging on losing the song, and you always feel like you just got it, you just saved it, and you shove the lid on, and that's the record, and it's there. But I don't know, it's like you get to relive it again live. They're actually almost rewriting themselves. So live for me is a necessary.
Likewise, I think I could survive on songwriting and live performance only in all what happens within this business, and that's from videos to photo shoots to press, whatever. I mean, if I could just have that hour up on stage and then a few hours during the day to write a song to get up on that stage, I'd be happy. That's all I need.
I need a little bit more than that, but because I really do enjoy, I love the visuals, I love writing, I love being involved in video and the creative side, and I do enjoy media, but writing songs and being on stage is probably what this is all about. You Could Be Mine it's a song that's really musically all about delay. It started off with a bass line and a drum beat which delayed, and subsequently every instrument just had to be delayed too. I only had one delay unit and I could only feed the whole thing through or nothing. And it's just beautiful. It's a swirling... it's one of my favourite songs on the record. I think that it slowly builds. It's quite beautiful, and it's a very cyclic song. When I hear it, I think of like a slow tornado, or I think it's really romantic and really moody and very tragic, and I think Daniel did a fantastic job with the instrumentation. I really enjoyed working with the strings. It was one of the first songs that I'd sort of thought about doing a string arrangement in some of the string breakdowns and whatnot, and I really thoroughly enjoyed it. I would love to actually work on films or something like that, just as a hobby at the end of all this or something, because I really enjoyed bringing out emotion within the stringed instrument world. That's the thing, I think, with this song and a lot of songs, is that I think they feel visual, or almost a little bit cinematic, and Carry On Dancing has that feel, and I think this does as well. And to the moon and back at the end. So it's really easy. It's I like it because it's a song about unquenchable desire, and I think that's it's a common theme, I think, in our songwriting, my songwriting. Artwork was always a really important issue for me, and if I could, I would have included a 20-page colour booklet, and there would have been, art references and all sorts of things, and obviously for our first record it just wasn't possible. The interesting thing about the front cover is that the name of the band is called Savage Garden. That's inspired from a reference in Anne Rice's vampire novels, where she talks about a vampire's world is a savage garden because they're beautiful, they're immortal, they have all these fantastic superpowers, and yet the reality is that they're just like a savage beast because they have to kill to survive, and in the end they're just like an earthworm or a lion or a caveman in the jungle. They're all part of a savage garden. And a photographer in New York, Leonie Messer, she works with the Smashing Pumpkins. When she heard the name of the band, she came along to the photo shoot with a Hieronymus Bosch painting, and it was called The Garden of Earthly Delights. And inside that painting there was all this beautiful imagery, and there was fruit and owls and stuff, and so that carried through to the photo shoot, and it just seemed like a really natural thing to put throughout the record. It just seemed to sum it up really nicely. I think the front cover is just a really interesting photograph. It's taken out of context. It was a funnier photo. The photo is actually quite funny, and when you look at it blown up, it's actually the two of us sitting next to a 60s television, and I'm rolling my eyes and Daniel's staring down the camera, and it was funny because I think it showed how different we are. When they blew it up, it actually becomes a lot more serious, and I think that the front cover, the way it's cropped, is a lot more dramatic, and I like it because it's just stark and it's black and it's white, and without meaning to, I think it does say a lot about us as individuals. Absolutely, yeah. I'm an angry, twisted person, and you're like, Santa Monica. This was a song that was never
had no intentions to actually be on this record. It was recorded in Brisbane at home for $0. This song cost nothing to record. And the song as itself is the reason why you didn't have to spend any money on it. It was just saying, I'm a great song.
Santa Monica was intended to be a B-side, and we actually pushed a recorded track off this record to put this one on. We dropped a track to put this on. It was a song that, for me, started with a handheld tape recorder on the way to a train station. We'd finished recording the record, and I was walking along, and the pace of my walk probably set the tempo of the song. And the chorus came straight away. The chorus melody and the lyric was there. I sang it into the tape deck, and I went back to Daniel and said, look, I've got this song. I think it's really, really good, and played it. But there was no verse progression at all. And so Daniel played a progression, and I started singing over that, and it just came really easily. And lyrically, it's one of my favourite songs. It's funny because it really has captured for me just a sense of uncertainty we were feeling, or I was feeling at the time of the record. It ties in my American reaction, my experiences with America as a first timer, and for me, just hints at a little bit about the public mask that we've started to put on, and how through the telephone or through my computer or on the internet, I can hide behind something and I can be anything I want to be, and you wouldn't know the difference. And that's that song. In the future, I think I'd just like to be able to have the opportunity to make another one of these records, to be honest. It's really hard to see too far down the line. I see, us making another 2 or 3 really good records, and then I want to start to get a bit crazy. I want to start to shake things up a little bit. I can see I'd be doing different things. I really want to get into films and writing and visual things, maybe even stage musicals. I'm not sure. There are other things I want to do apart from just being the lead singer of Savage Garden, but for the next 10 years or 3 or 4 albums, it definitely involves me working with Daniel Jones and writing songs together.
I think you could weigh up all the pros and cons now and look 2 weeks into the future, and sometimes it looks that negative that you could destroy it before you even realise how damn positive the whole thing is. It's there, it's ready to be kicked along for as long as it can be, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun for us, and I think we will get another successful record out, and that's the short-term goal that I'm heading for, and I believe that it's going to be bigger and better and stronger than this one, and why would you stop at anything less?
I think even in the shortest term goal, it would be to successfully take this record on the road and just see the next stage. Here's the recorded piece of music and here's the live performance, and see how we can take those experiences away and write music and see what happens. Just get on board and see what happens. Hey, this is Darren and Daniel from Savage Garden.
And here's a track from our debut record.
Hi, this is Darren Hayes and I'm from Savage Garden.
Hi, this is Daniel Jones and I'm from Savage Garden.